Hello everyone and welcome to DevOps Lite course. We will start this course with Module 1. Module 1 will talk about DevOps overview. So let's take the grassroots journey of DevOps. Let's start with 2009, where Patrick hosts the first DevOps Day. Surprisingly, like-minded people around the world attended the conference. It was an awesome event. Twitter exploded with hashtag DevOps Days. And boom, hashtag DevOps, jump in and join the conversation. But wait, did that happen? So let's go back in time. In 2007, Patrick was assigned a new project. It was about data migration. He was responsible for testing. And boom, he hit the Great Wall. Clearly, there was a need to address the issue of Dev now successfully applying lean and agile practices to drive development, and ops was out of the loop. Following ITIL practices, driving stability, reliability, it was us versus them, the blame game, creating adversaries, rather than one team focused on one goal. He takes to Twitter to find a voice. In 2008, in Toronto Agile Conference, Patrick presenting how fragile are we, agile infrastructure and operations. Andrew posted birds of feather discussion, agile infrastructure administrators. Not well received, only one participant. Sounds familiar, right? So Patrick searches for Andrew in the hallway. They connect and start agile administration group online. In 2009, we had made some progress around DevOps thinking. O'Reilly's Velocity Conference, they are talking about 10 plus deploy a day. Dev and Ops cooperation at Flickr. Patrick at home watching joined the conversation online and was challenged to host his own DevOps days. Vendors started responding. A sense to this, Dev plus Ops ways of thinking is taking hold and making its way into mainstream. So it clearly reflects, and history reminds us, it's a movement started by the practitioners for the practitioners. DevOps is not a product, framework, specification, or a job title, clearly. It's an experience-based movement, decentralized and open to all. And let's go back in time to understand the practicalities of DevOps and the DevOps thinking, and what was the opportunity and the challenge. In 2015, there was an article written by Gartner, and it also reflects the challenges as well as opportunities. So let's talk about the opportunities first. So they talked about why DevOps will emerge. And DevOps is not usually driven from the top, thus it may be more easily accepted by IT operations. They also reflected the challenges we had with numerous frameworks, including ITIL, best practices, and it was well acknowledged that they have not been able to deliver on the goals, enabling IT organizations to look at new models. And growing interest in tools like Chef, Puppet back in time also helped to simulate demand for open source solutions-based management. But wait, there were challenges as well, which Gartner mentioned. Why DevOps will not emerge? The cultural change are the hardest to implement, and DevOps required a significant rethinking of IT operations, conventional wisdom. And this is large, and there was a large body of work with respect to ITIL and other frameworks and best practices that was already accepted within the organization. Back in time, open source management tools, which were aligned with that thinking and approach of DevOps, had not seen significant enterprise market share and traction. So there were opportunities as well as challenges, but where did this story took us? Let's discuss some of the micro trends in the industry which enable this movement. And obviously, we will talk about the specific DevOps practices which are aligned to software development, planning, developing, deploying, testing, and delivering software solutions. But there is a broader conversation and broader complexity which was outside the code. And this complexity was beginning to reflect from various aspects. Three pillars we have reflected here in the slide. Open source tooling. There was a diversity in portfolio. Companies had started to realize the power of digital transformation and how software would play an important role in that. Continuous everything thinking and mindset, and that shift has begun. The scale and lifetime of solutions, products, services had shortened. And lastly, the legacy environment. Large organizations still carry that legacy environment and footprint. So the complexity of making it, taking it from a holistic perspective was large. There was another aspect, that emerging technology ecosystem with IoT, AI, data, edge computing was in making. And the third pillar was evolving deliveries. So obviously, the cloud service providers have emerged, cloud enabled deliveries were kind of adopted. Hybrid cloud environments are progressing faster than we think. And also, from a technology perspective, there was more acceptance towards modern ways of approaching software development and operations. So container-based infrastructure, microservices, the shift from monolithic environment to microservices, and developments like serverless technologies had also enabled evolution of delivery organizations to look at different ways of delivering software. Clearly, a very, very complex ecosystem has emerged. But you must be thinking that, how DevOps plays an important role in this. So just to give you a reflection from a market proposition, DevOps engineers are among the top 10 notable tech roles today. More than 4,651 job openings in 2019 to 129,000 in 2022 in the United States alone. So clearly the race of DevOps hiring is on. And there is a plethora of skill set which are required in order to kind of ensure that you have that skill, capability, and knowledge to drive this role in as required from the industry standpoint. And there is a lot of traction on upskilling, reskilling. The global skill wheel from DevOps Institute shows these 5 skills, which are automation, human, technology, leadership, and process and framework skills, which have been considered as top 5 skill capabilities and top 5 skills for DevOps roles. So again, this is an emerging role. DevOps is enabling organizations, and the power of possibility, the organization, when they are preparing for digital transformation together with DevOps, they have a bigger opportunity to succeed with the agility which is demanded by today's modern organization landscape. So to emphasize the fact that why DevOps has been a very important enabler in the digital transformation journey for organizations, I would highlight that there are 5 main reasons. And of course, you'll have to find your own organization why. But business wants to constantly innovate because there is a need of modern products, services, the ecosystem of consumers, are changing. They are more digitally aware, and also they are looking for more digital solutions than ever. Speed, productivity, and quality are required in order to kind of compete in this ecosystem. Focus on customer experience, customer delight when you take your software solutions to market is extremely essential. Operating with efficiency, you have to be cost efficient. So more and more companies are looking at pay as you go models, subscription based models, and also to ensure that that DevOps thinking is from the inception stages adopted to ensure we have operational efficiency and effectiveness. And lastly, breaking down the silo culture. So the business, the technical teams, and the IT teams working together to ensure that the company's organization remain innovative. So how DevOps is enabling that is it's looking at the entire delivery pipeline, and the goals of DevOps, they are not limited to what you see on the screen, but smaller and more frequent releases, shorten the lead time between the fixes, faster mean time of recovery, reducing cost of product iteration, and culture of collaboration and effective communication will enable faster time to value. Obviously, these digitally enabled products and services demand that we ensure we have faster feedback loops, we release quicker, as well as we are discrete and have short cycles of product improvement and product new feature enablement. So again, DevOps plays an important role as we go and move towards the next decade. Now, we will talk about the DevOps values, how DevOps ensured that these goals are accomplished. So there are 5 values which DevOps has advocated. Culture of shared goals that characterize an organization. We'll talk more about these. Automation, automate everything that is repeated, because we want to save our developers, our IT organization from burnout. Lean, eliminate the waste and optimize as much as possible. Measure, performance matrices, people and process matrices. Do not overdo things. Build what is needed, as well as measure these discrete small improvements. Sharing, constant collaboration across the teams. And this creates a culture of continuous improvement for everything. Now, when we talk about collaboration, building that culture that unlocks the potential of teams through collaborating and harnessing the relationships to maximize business outcome. So the business teams, the IT teams, the technology teams, the product owners, they share the same goals and objectives. Also, consider lean practices to eliminate waste and add efficiency. Avoid death by overproduction, context switching, eliminate management overheads for features which no one cares about. So it is extremely important to build that feedback loop and also continuous experimentation. Sharing, set clear goals, make it shareable, prepare the teams, break down the lateral, horizontal hierarchical barriers, develop goal-oriented cross-functional approach, which naturally brings alignment. Automation, understanding the critical flow, complementing it with tooling and upskilling, which model integrity in systems while becoming more transparent and consistent. Measurement, mechanism to communicate and analyze how improvements has helped achieve business outcome and supporting cultivation of best practices which help gain momentum in the right direction. So, what are the key principles of DevOps? We will talk more about it. Flow, the first way, feedback, the second way, and experimentation, the third way. These 3 ways of DevOps are advocated by the Phoenix project. flow, feedback, and continuous experimentation. There's another aspect, theory of constraint, which is basically identifying the most important constraint and reduce bottlenecks. Example, your dev delays, environment delays, deployment delays, test setup, QA delays. Also, organizations look at resiliency and reliability as one of the pillars of progressive modern software-based organizations. So chaos engineering becomes an important aspect of DevOps. And lastly, learning organization, creating a culture of continuous improvement for everything. So let's dig a little more deeper into the three ways. The first way, the elements of first way are understanding the flow of work, always seek to increase the flow, never pass known defects downstream, never allow local optimizations to create global degradation. In the subsequent modules, we will talk about how DevOps enabled organizations are building that transparency, simplifying the visibility and the prioritization of work, and understanding how to manage and monitor the flow of work. But for now, let's continue this discussion about the left to right flow from dev and ops. That's what the first phase is all about. An outcome emphasizes on the performance of the entire system. Purpose is to understand and increase the flow. There are various tools and techniques available today which enables the first way, and we will talk more about it in the subsequent slides. The second way, the purpose is to amplify feedback loop. It's the right to left feedback loop, and outcome is to identify areas of improvement. The methods to provide feedback, there are many: automated testing, peer reviews, monitoring, dashboard, matrices, and feedback would enable quick course correction and also enable our developers to ensure they prioritize the backlog in line with the need of the consumer. The third way, the purpose is to encourage experimentation and repeated learning. The elements of third way, experimentation, taking risk with the aim to improve, allow people to fail. Don't be careless or lazy, but adopt practices like what Netflix did with Chaos Monkey. The concept can be used to master the experimentation and improvement and continuous improvement and learning of an organization. The outcome is to extract learning from work. We will talk more about the practices which are aligned with the first way, second way, and third way. But for now, let's talk about the basics of DevOps practices. So we will talk about planning, coding, development, building, testing, provisioning, operating, monitoring, and how to orchestrate all this in one way. So let's talk about these practices alongside site reliability and resilience engineering, DevSecOps, ChatOps, and Kanban. Remember, principles are prioritized on top of practices. So, continuous integration. The characteristics of continuous integration is how frequently you commit your code. How do you build? Do you have automated build process? Do you run in a production-like environment? Version control repositories and CI servers, do you have that in your ecosystem? These are the characteristics of continuous integration. The purpose is to quickly detect conflicts and errors. Commits are validated through automated build and test, and also committing code in a shared repository once every 24 hours is one of the best practices advocated by many practitioners. Obviously, it is depending on the context you are and the need of the organization. Now, continuous integration does not only stand on continuous integration servers, repositories, but also it has different aspects. And I will highlight coexistence of microservices and DevOps. So obviously, if you would like to do continuous integration, you should look at the architectural aspects of your applications. How you can move from a monolithic application to a microservices based application architecture, and if it is needed. Microservices empower decentralization and also, to a certain extent, foster innovation and innovate through small teams. Another aspect would be containers. And how do you set up your infrastructure? So, include infrastructure as code, containerize your environment. Do you have orchestration engines on top of your containers? So these are kind of connected evolutionary changes which are happening side by side. What you see from a practice perspective. DevOps is not tied up with any technology. The purpose is to bring consistency in testing, staging, and production, and becoming more efficient with a decoupled environment, and also having rapid provisioning of these infrastructure components. Continuous testing. Continuous testing is process of executing automated test in the deployment pipeline. The purpose is to reduce the impact and cost of defects. The test can be functional, non-functional. There are various types of testing: test-driven development, performance testing, end-to-end testing, security testing. At the end of the day, isolating risk in target areas early and effectively is the purpose of continuous testing. Continuous delivery. Characteristics of continuous delivery. Software is in deployable state in the entire life cycle. Team prioritize keeping software in a deployable state. Get fast and automated feedback. Ability to do frequent deployments. It is needless to say that with this, DevOps delivers on Agile Manifesto as well. The purpose is to get quick feedback from the users, and software, when it becomes always in releasable state, you can imagine that code branches should be short-lived, right? So let's talk more about continuous deployment then. Continuous deployment is the ability to do frequent releases when a change undergo testing. So continuous delivery cannot be successful without continuous deployment. Release is a choice made by an organization. The key features would be deploy, verify, monitor, and respond. There are 7 skilled contributors to continuous deployment. There are many other techniques, but I will talk about dark launches, feature toggles, deployment automation, selective deployment, self-service, version control, blue-green deployment, which basically characterizes how do you do continuous deployment. So let's talk about briefly about these characteristics. So dark launches. Dark launches, primarily you have seen Facebook calls dark launches as gatekeepers. Google, Amazon, Netflix, and other companies also use it. Feature toggles, progressively exposing your features for some or all users. Early access and plan management. Development and operation organizations to work seamlessly, because if you have to do these kind of segregated feature toggle deployments, it has to be kind of synchronized with your operations team and also communicated well in advance. Feature flags should be short-lived. Feature flags require robust engineering process and lifecycle management. And feature flags are considered technical debt if they live for long. So this is a use case driven method, and it has to be carefully engineered into your application. Blue-green deployment and canary releases, maintaining two separate but identical environments. Existing version blue exists in production for the users, and a new version green is deployed and tested. Now, switch the incoming traffic to green when you're satisfied and you have the feedback. Kubernetes Swarm Orchestrator supports such kind of deployments. Canary releases uses the same principle but switches only few users. There are other considerations from industry when it comes to DevOps practices. I will talk about 5 of them, but in the subsequent modules, you will get to know more in detail about these things. So from a team perspective, focus on the 2 pizza rule of Amazon. That means make your team small, discrete, incremental, which can focus on scalability and efficiency. From an architecture standpoint, consider microservices in the context of pizza rule. So basically, if you want to deploy fast, you have to break down the application from a monolithic application of microservices, and also build an architecture so with clear dependencies. And there is more to it, which we will talk about in module 3. Infrastructure. Remove the notion it works on my machine. So obviously it has more to do with how you manage, monitor your infrastructure, as well as how do you take the agile principles and see if you can incorporate the infrastructure as code to build integrity and also modernize your infrastructure landscape. Process. Don't beef up the process to establish matrices. And deployment strategies, we have talked about these strategies in the past slides, so choose wisely. Not everything can be applicable to your own organization. It depends on the type of application and also the user needs. Site reliability and resiliency, SRE. This practice is more or less credited to Google. What it talks about is the goal is to create an ultra scalable and high reliable software. The principle is to spend 50% time doing ops and 50% dev tasks and remove the barriers between the teams. So it's a kind of a mindset thinking where you take ops as a software problem. Resiliency is the ability to adjust functioning during expected and unexpected conditions. There is a lot of other aspects of SRE, which we will not talk about in this course, regarding error budget, policies, how do you do SLA, SLO management, and then so on and so forth. But this is one of the areas, if you're interested, you can go to the Google site, and a lot of information is publicly available. Let's talk about DevSecOps. So the purpose is to build the mindset that everybody is responsible for security. The methods induced by DevSecOps embrace shift-left testing strategy, leverage automation for resilience, detect and audit early. There are a plethora of tools available today to ensure that you integrate your security into your pipeline from the inception stages. ChatOps. The purpose is to connect people, tools, process, and automation, and synchronize communication and reduce the mean time to repair. You must have seen integration of Teams channels, Slack channels, and similar tools into your delivery pipeline. Let's talk about automation and architecting. Automation is one of the key areas. The key concept for automation practices is to integrate collection of tasks through centric tools. Start with understanding the information flow. Self-service can improve timeliness of workflow. Architect before you automate. Don't automate bad practices and bad processes. Automate high-value tasks, and tool chain will evolve over time, so your automation should. We talk about matrices and dashboards shortly now. Obviously, when you make your delivery incremental in discrete steps, it is very important to measure the progress, do course correction. DevOps is a journey, not an end state, and there is no single tool or mechanism to measure DevOps progress. No single standard exists which baselines or defines DevOps indices. However, there are many best practices and many matrices which are widely adopted by industry, like the DORA matrix. So the key goal is to focus on the outcome, improve team efficiency, product performance, cost efficiency, and customer experience. And again, focus on DevOps is a journey, not an end state. More about measurement, measure efficiency and effectiveness based on priority and urgency. Start small, focus on what matters, connect people, process, and technology together. Key elements of DevOps teams in action: correlate action, integrate and aggregate your insights. The insights should be timely. And remember, data does not provide you any answers until and unless you interpret that data into insights. So remove that bottleneck and improve your DevOps pipeline as you go along. Measure flow, feedback, and experimentation. Key concepts of matrices is, obviously, we have talked about speed, quality, stability, and culture. 4 matrices for DevOps for performance is average work item, lead time, current work item by phase, cyclometric complexity, and dynamicity of the code. So measure what matters. Business matrices are higher in the value chain. Do connect your business matrices with your IT matrices. Now, let's talk about DevOps and frameworks. Obviously, a big question is that DevOps is not a methodology or a framework in itself. It's a convergence of principles. So there's a lot of other practices, frameworks, methodologies which are available, and we need to look at holistically how to connect the dots. So I'll talk briefly about lean, agile thinking, ITSM, and learning organization. All of them plays an important role building a DevOps culture. Now, let's talk about agile. Scrum is an agile framework. Many organizations have implemented Scrum. Scrum teams with DevOps will focus on end-to-end from business analysis to operations. Scrum teams adopting DevOps will have a comprehensive definition of done on items like infrastructure as code. Every feature delivered should produce value for the customer. You ship, you manage it. Just enough processes. Scrum teams work on a product backlog item which are included in the value stream. DevOps is more about organization culture than tools. Now, if you think about a certain use case from your perspective in your organization, try to connect the user stories to the ops side of the organization. The product backlog items consist of the following: scalability, deployability, monitoring, logging, alerting. Also look at the team structure for Scrum teams with DevOps composition. What it means is cross-functional skill set. Sprint planning includes operability features. Giving you examples from how to connect the dots between Agile and DevOps, let's also try to understand value stream management and value stream mapping, how it can help, enabling DevOps culture. So obviously, setting and identifying value drivers from the inception stages. Obviously, don't overdo it. Absolute value is not important. Value creation is. And avoid value calculation to the smallest detail. Build your backlog priority for maximizing value based on which type of value means the most to the customers. What are you doing better or worse than your competitors? We can talk more about it in the subsequent modules, but let's focus on another framework, which is improvement kata. Improvement kata is a way of achieving things that you don't know how you are going to achieve. Something very familiar to what DevOps is, where it has been a journey so far. We are evolving this DevOps culture in one way or the other. So working iteratively towards a target, leading by developing the way to improve significantly complex system to create a condition to fix itself and keep improvements efforts aligned. So improvement kata can play an important role if you're starting to adopt DevOps culture in your organization. Lean practices. Now, how do you connect lean with DevOps? Lean is one of the key values of DevOps. So eliminating waste, deliver value to customer, and continuous improvement. Lean puts customer value at focal point. Look at the sources of inefficiency like long throughput time, many flow units, many restarts, and think about it in the context of your DevOps pipeline. And processes are central to the flow efficiency. So do work on your process efficiency. Lean software practices, some of them are remove task switching. Legacy application and code can build in a lot of rework. Architectural limitations, reducing backlog of feature development, inventory of unused features, and extra features or overproduction. Think about all these things when you are developing your software. Integrating frameworks. Obviously, creating that new opportunity takes us to think about strategic long-term change, cross-pollination, hiring techniques, and tactical side of transformation. Behavior and culture change is central to DevOps. So the characteristic of DevOps culture is shared vision, goals, and incentives. Quality, security, and availability, everyone's responsibility, and maximizing creativity. Some key models through which you can assess your change curve is Kubler-Ross change curve model, Thomas Killian conflicting model. These are kind of things which, as an organization, you can look at and try to kind of see where you are in your journey. Critical success factor in DevOps adoption is communication and collaboration. Again, DevOps is a culture, not a role or a tool. Now, when you're thinking about your first steps into DevOps, you should also start thinking about what it means for different roles. As a product manager or as program manager, as a development team manager, an operation manager, scrum master, business stakeholder, customer, business relationship. Did you think about these roles and start to think and align your DevOps pipeline to ensure that we create value for everyone? Organization learning practices. As we see that creating a culture of learning is central to DevOps. So building your operational user stories, reserve time for learning, internal coaches to spread knowledge, use practices like Chaos Monkey or Chaos Engineering, improvement days, bi-directional flow, teach and learn. These are pretty much ways how organizations are adopting DevOps. Now, DevOps is not only about tools, practices, and technology. It's also about organization structure. So initially, when you take the legacy organization, the organization was pretty much I-shaped. Operations, development, deployment, and business was like complete silos with specialists. Now we see that the organizations have taken the first step in that maturity curve. They need T-shaped people with broad skills and deep expertise in one area. And moving on, more mature organizations are looking at E-shaped professionals, which are experience, execution, and exploration. They can do it all. They're small teams, distributed, and they are connected and collaborating well. Before we move forward, let's discuss the following and think about it for 10 minutes. What is the biggest benefit of adopting DevOps in your team? What are the biggest challenges for adopting DevOps in your team? What advice you will give to the teams adopting DevOps for the first time? What advice you will give to the executive team regarding DevOps? You can actually propose a short-term, long-term objective for DevOps and try to kind of do this exercise within yourselves for 10 minutes. We will talk more about technology, technical details, a use case, as well as a project in the upcoming modules. But for now, thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed this module.